have to look inside your heart and see what do I care about? What am I passionate about? And get involved in some of these forums and things because at the end of we will all enjoy. So it's very important that we make our voice heard. I remember years ago when I was being offered a political appointment. I went initially I wasn't going to take it, but my mother told me something that still sticks with me. That you're always complaining about things not being done right in this country. You have the opportunity to make a difference. Take it or shut up. So because at the end of the day, Ghana belongs to all of us. It is our collective responsibility to make this country what we want it to be. So it is not just the political leaders or anything. One thing that I like to say is that it's about our lives and make our lives difficult. Our politicians are our brothers and sisters. We sit with them in the classroom. They are our friends. They are our classmates. So if there's something wrong with the political class, there's something wrong with our society. If our society has those problems, so let's fix our problem. Hopefully, we'll get the political class that we desire later on. Thank you.
What a fantastic note to end on. If you have a If you have a chance to do something, do it or shut up. It's been an exciting panel. I, for one, have learned a lot of things. We have had a number of values that if we are to move forward with the future that we want, we need to live and breathe some of these values, including honesty. Our young people are asking for openness so that when they are involved, it's not just tokenism, that their voice actually matters. And we're also calling upon young people to volunteer. If Ghana is going to be the Ghana that we're proud of and the Ghana that we want to live in future, we also owe it to the generations behind us to begin to serve the nation. We can keep pointing fingers across generations, but if we do not come together to embody the values that we want to see, to live and breathe these values, we cannot expect it from someone else. We cannot keep having this sense of entitlement that it needs to come either from the older generation, the younger generation. For my panelists again, I have Farida Bedro, Rafael Ajana, Dr. Imrana, and Radia. Thank you so much. I'll hand it back to Shamima. Yes, so you can go. Do we, okay, I think a picture, something.
Hello. Please be generous. Be generous with that round of applause. Wow. It's true. I'm just going to use this. We are not doing too well on time because, again, the value of time. This morning, I realized that our senior citizens were already seated long before many of us waltz in as a younger generation. So perhaps one thing we can take from the past and from the older generation for time, other people's time, that is. So let me just take this occasion and this moment to recognize formally some of the dignitaries we have in our midst. We do have, again, from yesterday, they were here and they're here again today. Please, let's welcome with a round of applause and acknowledge the presence of the Honorable former Minister of Finance, Cedi. Let us also recognize the presence of a former minister as well and a member of the current NPP government, the Honorable Hackman Owusu Ajiman. Honorable Hackman and Tekpe, you're all looking fresh. What is the secret? Young men, you have to go to them when there's break and ask them for the secret. And of course, there's one person sitting in between them, the evergreen. He there, you have to really see him in chambers for the secret. Let's recognize the presence of the Honorable, Venerable Sam Okujoto. Let us also acknowledge the presence of our kings, chiefs, and queen mothers who are here. Please wave at us. We have some traditional leaders. Thank you so very much. And then give yourselves a round of applause as well. All of you are very VVIP guests. We appreciate your presence. We're going on now. If you feel like stretching, please just get up and stretch yourself because we are moving to another conversation. So please feel free to get up and stretch a bit. Okay. Our next plenary conversation is going to focus on the 4 other thematic areas that the compact addresses. Yesterday, you sat in some. Today, we are going to look at the private sector development, healthcare, climate change, governance, and corruption. And I'll be inviting my guests to take their seats so that we quickly try and go through it. So the discussion will be a reflective one. We're looking at the public interest and link them directly to outcomes from our citizens' engagement. You would know that after the draft compact was prepared, there's been series of citizens' engagements across the country. And today it's almost like a validation sort of. So we're going to go again through these thematic areas and then consolidate with your inputs, especially when we go into the breakout sessions. So please let us welcome from the private sector, Dr. Humphrey Eyim Dake, the president of the Association of Ghana Industries. Please, with a round of applause. On healthcare, we have Dr. Gilbert Backel. He's an independent public health consultant. Welcome him with a round of applause as well. On climate change, we have Professor John Asafwe, Senior Fellow at ACET. Please welcome him with a round of applause. And on governance and corruption, we have Dr. Kojo Asante, Director of Policy Engagement and Partnerships at CDD Ghana. And you have me, the moderator. You may give me to a round of applause. Right. So this panel presents us a conundrum. I'll tell you why shortly. So here we have Mr. Eyim Dake, right? Tell us that he wants a country that is industrialized. He's pushing for industries, for manufacturing, factories, so that he can employ the teeming mass of these four gentlemen in a cabinet room. And we ask all of them to make a case. Mr. Yim says that this country requires a lot of factories factories to be powered by energy so that we can employ young people 24/7. He didn't finish before Gilbert jumped into the fray. Said, what are you talking about? Do you even understand the health-seeking behaviors of these young people? You want to create all these factories? Don't you know they are not adopting the necessary health behavioral practices, women, to work in those factories? John was sitting there laughing at these people. If we don't know, the next flood will come and destroy all these factories you want to set up. That climate change is changing everything. So you better think about your adaptation and mitigation measures. To which Kojo laughed. Ha 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 ha. All this will come to naught. Sikanasa. Ashe. We are in a deep hole. So how are they going to resolve this very complex conundrum between them? And yet they have to arrive at a decision. We will see if we can attempt a solution this morning. Start with you, Dr. Humphrey Dake. And I'm sure you've also reviewed the technical paper on the private sector. And 67 years on, we seem to be in a cycle and not expanding opportunities. By way of your words instruction this morning, to find solutions to be done, to put this demographic dividend to good use for the bottom line.
Good afternoon. Good morning, distinguished members here gathered and colleagues on how to create a better Ghana for us all, considering history, considering events playing out, and considering the current state of affairs that we find ourselves in. So proceeding from where we are now, that becomes the real crux of the matter. Since history has already given us a lesson and we can project into the future, looking at what other contemporaries have done. So in the current state of affairs, yes, the hole is that big as you described it, the debt position. And then the draft document that we reviewed, it's underpinned by a number of same old stories of infrastructural difficulties, lack of access to financing to the SME community, low skills development, regulatory issues, microeconomic difficulties, all scattered within the context. So our strong advocacy currently is that through the IMF, you have your activities. It is what it is, so we cannot run away from it. So that becomes a point of reflection. The primary product exportation, such clear program, and then gradually roll it out into a long-term development plan and methodologies that could work. Then the question becomes, then the leaders of authority or the decision makers in the point in time. So 2025 comes in with a new team. It's all about based upon research, where the economy is now, where the country is, what is the paradigm. Sometimes when we engage some agency and they seek to bring about the question, are you in a mature economy as you seek to practice what is being practiced in a mature economy? Go back, developmental paradigm was it? And what sort of policies underpin that said development? So when you are still in the primary stage and you're exporting primary products, you're not in an efficient economy. For you to go leapfrog and deploy the governance structure, but you still ask yourself this. When we were doing this new paradigms of capital formation, since she says the domestic revenue is low, the debt position is huge. How do we think around the box and
okay? So what I mean, if we were playing dominoes at this point in our life, which domino do you suggest will be the one to focus on to their not.
Right. It's a complex one. It's not a one fit size. Industrialization would support our cause. Structure that we have a lot of peasant farmers. So our proposal one, let's go into huge commercial farming structure. And therefore, then say deliberately fund it and create major commercial farmers and target your trade trends. What are your trade vulnerabilities? State becomes value addition. Then bring in the factories. Once you do that, the biggest challenge in the room is financing. It gets to a stage, the inflationary basket then becomes a trigger, and your land that you have as a strategy for capital formation. Two points between finance minister, I can't recall finance minister Tekbe, but I can recall to do it through GEA, Ghana Enterprise Agency, and currently seeking to another. But the challenge here is that at what price do you give it to the private sector player or SMEs? In other jurisdictions, including our francophone countries, there are credit guarantee schemes that underwrite such funding, and it softens it, it reduces your risks, and gives you a form of patient funds that gives you the capacity to expand and go into staff formation through a structured approach. Credit guarantee schemes should be introduced to back the financial system through the interventions of the Bank of Ghana and the commercial universal banks to give us the breather to get funding at competitive price to kickstart the productive sector. Currently, the productive sector is low. How do you kickstart it? Those are the couple of solutions I'm giving you from the industrial perspective. Then you deliberately go into value addition. Then you target anchor projects, i.e., projects that can bring a value chain stimulation, like the aluminum value chain, and we're excited about that. But there's the investment that is needed for the refinery, close to $1 billion. We've seen $1 billion coming through the what you call some new growth posts like the oil. Now new growth posts are coming in the green energy space. You need some deliberate intervention. You need bold men to complete the value chain in the aluminum value chain. The cocoa processing. What can we do beyond the traditional one? And what is the difficulty currently that we go out through FDIs and bring in companies to process cocoa, but they can't get beans. Currently, they bring in funding, and then you trigger the subject matter of exemption, which Parliament passed, and it became part of the law. We take advantage of it, and then another group says, no, we do not agree to it. So going forward, we believe there are complexities, and then you need the control of the state through the constitution. It matters. The SOEs, the state-owned enterprises, the abuse of their officers, how are they appointed? There are complexities of issues that comes to play. But straight to the point, we believe that for industrialization that will do us good, agriculture will do us good. The big elephant in the room is funding, and I've given you two proposals on using the land reform and the utilization of lands, and then through capital formation.
And when I do come back to you, I would want to ask the question about would it matter who owns and who would be managing or who would be at the commands when I come back to you. But now let me bring Dr. Daka in. A healthy nation, Gilbert. A healthy nation is what? A wealthy nation. That's what they say to power industry.
Call it the marking scheme. But she has changed the question. Oh no. It's about the concept of health. So the you're looking at. So when we are looking at health in that aspect, if you're a farmer, you need to be healthy. Ghana is not necessarily in the top 10. Probably in the median area, everybody is trying their best. Some broadly, 8 deaths per 100,000 delivery of looking at health. And I think we should be able to personalize. At least I have pocketitis.
Explain further.
My brother here has got pocketitis, and we're all suffering from pocketitis.
What is that?
That is the lack of money in your pockets.
Your pockets.
The message. Oh, Gilbert, how are you? It's been a long time. I said, oh, Kenneth, how are you doing? He said, it's not good to go. My friend is definitely. Another colleague said, hello, Gilbert, how are you? He said, Gilbert, this hospital I'm going, by the time I come back, the money. This is a child with malaria. They have to set up a line. By the time the infant mortality, but to personalize the rest, everybody is working with some amount of a mental disorder. Just ticking the box. But when you sit and engage, depression. So a health But so whilst that systems fail, then health as people get sick and then we treat failed economic, social, as human beings. When we are drum problems, it's because in class we say a stitch in time says, let my friend here make us economically. I'm not getting floods. Is the resources.
Stations or our current challenge.
Good.
That's
We all subscribe to what we call universal health coverage. We call that accessibility. You go there, is the service available for it? Solution to be done to stay healthy. One. Than we going around the country holding signboards. That's what we should be looking at. We should language, because that is not English to intimidate the people who want to be healthy. So one, let's invest in those growing. And where do they grow? In the environment. We wait for people to get malaria and then. So we also need to invest in that. Would you believe? Whilst maybe Coca-Cola says we put in tax, they are influencing the invest in interventions that there's no place to walk. The building code is designed say you must have a mosquito net. There must be a law that says the door, all the. And some time back there was a cholera outbreak.
Pieces of individuals. How far can we use that we allow to be imported into the country? All kinds of topics, all are threatening. How do we use the instrument?
Not about a hospital and a clinic. 80% it is in socioeconomics, it is in environment, roads, and making sure people are checked. It's nothing to do with the Ministry of Health. So the core is whether it's health is the Ministry of Agriculture. So if we are taking a solution, we need to go to an all-government approach of the Ministry of Health. Other sectors need to.
Thank you very much. My mates, Minini, is contrived to keep Africa and Ghana under development. Convince me otherwise.
Right. That's a very loaded question. Well, some of what we're experiencing is caused by the current stock, but we cannot be pointing the fingers at them because over the last 20 years, since 1990, we've also contributed. Let me share a few statistics with you. So when we are talking of from 25, just a few statistics, 25.34 metric tons of CO2 to 42.15 of CO2. So this is just within the last 20, 30 years. So at the advanced countries. And in fact, if upwards, the graph is going and the projections don't look good. Rain, which is going to cause damage, floods, emitted to develop, and they have them anymore. And so that's why we have to do forestation. If I show you the statistics, so we are losing and drier, and we're going to have more rain. So there's a need for some education for people to know the number of trees, because already we flew to the Western region to have citizens engagement. Brown, and this is coming from pollution of our waters. Yeah, so percent of our energy is coming from the dam. We can't rely on hydroelectric power anymore.
Speaking problems.
Right. So form 52% of the workforce and 10% of irrigation. So people are going to commodities like yam, just going to lose their.
The next how many years?
Hotter climate and drier climate. We need to find ways of getting them to use more modern inputs, variety and improve variety credits for them so that they can expand their farms. How can they be more productive? How can we use new technologies such also a gender element? Because men to find more fertile lands, when they migrate, and women are affected differently. Women are normally do not have access to land, and it get worse when they migrate. Young children, especially girls, will have to be sent far distances to go and fetch water, go and fetch firewood, and they don't get access. They don't go to school, while the boys may go to school. So this affects their development in school. So we have to find ways of addressing this gender balance to help women who are in this and young girls also adapt and also improve their ways of making earnings and making a living. But it's going to need money. Right. Ghana's budget for adaptation and mitigation up to 2030 is about 32 billion. Now, only 25% of this is going to come from domestic sources, or sometimes we may even have to borrow. Right. So the whole issue of financing is very important. And in fact, we can't rely on external finance because it may not be forthcoming. So we have to look at ways of raising finance domestically. And already we have a challenge because Ghana's revenue to GDP is only 13%. African average is 15%. So how can we find innovative ways of raising finance domestically?
Will we be able to find innovative ways? I mean, how hopeful, honest?
Well, in fact, there are opportunities in mitigation, like renewable energy, where the private sector could come in. Because currently, private sector participation in climate mitigation is almost nil. But if we can tell them that you can actually make money from renewable energy, from mitigation, and from using some of these new techniques, they might be willing to invest. So we have to, banks should find ways of raising new instruments like green bonds, green loans, which can actually make the loans accessible to farmers so that they can access these to try and implement climate smart measures. So there are opportunities to raise revenues domestically, just that we're not doing it. And we have to think seriously about how we can do that.
The urbanization question and the issue of cutting down trees within and making way for residential and commercial properties. To that compact?
Yes. So we do have some goals and targets that we want to reach in this area.
It seems we have too many problems. Action is causing. Just how bad?
All right. We aim to, get say. So just we Article 35 of the Constitution say now that has certain elements, help select leaders who form a government, basically help us see is that right from your party process for selecting leaders, they're transparent, and then they produce what
To corrupt.
happening in practice. And it is going back to multi. If you in your so you cannot expect a corrupted process that produce. So we need to do something serious about do most of it now as some that is thorough enough. You will reduce a lot of the incentives, monies that have been spent in government and most places where you have this condition. And giving the problems that have been listed here, much money on something and it doesn't deliver anything. So I think we need to get serious about if we still, and that's a big question, if we still want multi-party democratic state, intergenerational dialogue, issues like rights, inclusivity, how do you protect minorities, persons with disability? You need the rule of law. Society must be able to, be healthy. How do you ensure that even the allocation of resources go to the right places? So I think for me, democracy is the answer. Yeah.
The obviously a demand and a supply side is it, and the expectation is a contributing factor to nation in our politics. What is a
Leadership.
which is obviously not system?
Leadership, because otherwise it becomes a chicken and egg situation and you can go in circles. So every time MPs complain about all the demands they get and then limit the use of money in politics is resisted. Use is resisted. Let's can't have it both ways. If you have been at the forefront of that change. So I think if you can't eat your cake and have it, and I think we do a lot of that in our current situation. And for me, if there's we are in a state where we have survived enough, we are going along, but for us to basically take steps backwards, reflect and change course. And the window for me is now. So I think I said I know that even politicians say there's too much money in politics. What do we do about it? We need to limit it. No, you don't need all the billboards in order to communicate to Ghanaians your programs. We are spending too much money on politics and people are doing it at grave cost. They are selling their houses, they are, and when you do that, you create very bad incentives. Even when you don't want to be corrupt, when you get there, all the money you owe, you want to make it, harder for these things to happen, so that then we can deal with the real criminals, those who just want to be greedy and all of that. But when we make it so pervasive that everybody that goes in politics have to get engaged in corruption, we will not be able to pursue all the problems that we have.
So we'll be, because we'll be going into the breakout sessions. I just want you to, in your final round, just a minute each, to reflect on whether or not there are any other emerging issues that the breakout should be mindful about and consider. Dr. Dak, I'll start with you.
Thank you. You a question earlier. We are not against sharing. We are not averse to partnerships. I believe strongly we'll be averse to foreigners. I believe there's a reason why we are Ghanaians. I believe there's a reason why the constitution defines who leads the country and then where the mineral resources of the country are domiciled and empowered in the. And the story and the issue grown through the period. Of Ghana are heterogeneous posture into development, then policy, initiatives, and intentions. I tried to capture a few in the earlier presentation. I love to see a free SHS program and the growth. It has implications. So there's a correlate issue of capital formation to ventures, and we have a lot of mineral resource. Whilst we have pension funds and reforms, it is crucial to discuss. We look for and many more. We're still optimistic.
Economy. So we must give special.
Is intimate. And in all that we do, we are important, making sure that the quality, the care we provide is sound. And I think the healthcare in terms of the professionals just happened in Winneba should never immediately. Thank you.
Thank you very.
We should have made it broader to look at the environment or even look at nature, because we are losing biodiversity at a very rapid rate. What can we do to how can we reduce the rapid rate of deforestation? Breakouts, we can look at some of these areas because they are still very relevant. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It needs some resuscitation. It needs some completely gone, it's dying. People don't really in the medians of our roads, and you ask yourself, who's local government in very, and that's why I think the affirmative action you can have over in Ghana 2024. It's mind-boggling. So all our reforms has democracy, anything